What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Detroit Lions cornerback position. As unfortunately, after a terrible injury to our top corner, Jeff Okudah, the Lions may now have to look at some options to potentially add some help back into this unit. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about what the Lions cornerback position looks like right now, what we could see on Monday against the Packers, Monday Night Football, and also some potential options the Lions could target to add some help to this room. Like Dan Campbell said, we probably will. So let's get it started.
Way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
And welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. We have some Detroit Lions talk to cover with this cornerback position. I'm sure all of you have heard the news by now that Jeff Okudah is out for the season with a ruptured Achilles. You absolutely just hate to hear that. I mean, this is just terrible news. He has been placed on IR. He is officially out for the season for the Detroit Lions. And it's really awful. You go back to last season. He's a top pick. He's thrown into the fire. It was a really tough spot to put anybody in out there as our top guy. He's on an island. Desmond Trufant can't stay healthy. The pass rush. I mean, it's the worst defense in Lions history. And he's dealing with an injury at the same time. He's playing through injuries. They cut his season short, and he goes and gets surgery so he can come back and be ready for this season. And then we head into this year through training camp, all the offseason programs. I mean, the guy looks different. He looks faster. He looks like a vocal leader on this defense. You see the energy, just the approach that he was taking to every day in practice. And he stood out every day, taking on the top matchups, whether that was St. Brown, Tyrell, at the time Perriman, whoever it may have been, Khalif Raymond. He brought all the energy to the secondary unit. You know, we saw this secondary unit really come together in the offseason, and we know guys like Jerry Jacobs, you know, players like that, they have a really good relationship with Jeff Okudah. And to come out in week 1, obviously, yes, he gave up the big play. He got an earful from Aubrey Pleasant, I guess, after a big run play. But we also saw the flashes of what we've seen all offseason, the good plays that he can make. He bounced back from that. And honestly, even on that deep pass, we saw something very similar in last night's game with the Raiders game, where it's just a really underthrown pass, and he's unable to stop his momentum and actually make a play on the football. You know, continuing to watch that play back, the ball just comes out so bad from Jimmy Garoppolo. It's such a duck that, you know, he gets his head turned around, puts his arm out, but it's such an underthrow that his momentum kind of takes him away from the football. He's unable to make the play, and he gives up this huge touchdown run that he bounced back from that. He had a big pass break up over the middle, and it wasn't like a great game, but he only was accounted for giving up 2 receptions in that game, and that was one of those receptions that he gave up, was that bomb. But then he goes down with an injury. And at the time, I mean, he's sitting there on the field. You can see him with his legs stretched out. You don't know what it is. Is it a cramp? A lot of players were going down. How serious was it? There was no cart involved. So he didn't know how serious the injury was here. And then we get these unfortunate rumors coming in about a possible ACL tear. And you're looking at this stuff and you're like, oh gosh, man, is it really this bad? And then we get the news, ruptured Achilles, out for the season. And you just feel terrible for Jeff Okudah. I feel awful for the guy because seriously, I think this was going to be a very good season for him. I think the energy was there. I think you could just tell in training camp he was going the right way, and he looked like a different player. He definitely looked different this season, just in terms of the movement. You know, how well he was moving on the field coming off of surgery. He felt a lot faster, and I thought this was a great scheme, great coaching for him to take a step forward this year as our top guy. I thought he's really filling into that role in year 2. Then you get this news, and after Amani struggled in that game in week 1, now we're looking at a cornerback position that, just like that, I mean, just months ago, we're seeing this. We're saying, okay, we got Dunbar, we got Okudah, we got Amani, and then you draft Iffy. Okay, at least we don't have to put Iffy out there in a spot. Our luxury is Iffy, the rookie cornerback. Unlike Okudah last season, we can let him kind of develop into his role at his own pace. If he takes over the role, great, give it to him, but you can let him develop kind of behind the scenes. But now here we are. It looks like in that situation where Iffy is likely going to be the number 2 cornerback, basically, outside of Amani Oruwariye, who really struggled in week 1 against San Francisco, being credited for giving up 5 receptions on 8 targets. It was just a really rough game for Amani, plus the touchdown, that little zig route they hit to number 81. It was just a bad game for Amani overall. I can't see the full field. Not going to put all the blame on him, but it just did not look good. He wasn't super tight in coverage. He only had 1 tackle in that game. He did have the pass breakup on the tight end, which was a good play. It was almost picked off by Iffy, actually. Melifonwu was solid in the preseason. Now, he didn't go against starters in the preseason, of course, because he was behind Okudah and Amani. He was solid. It wasn't like he made any huge plays that really stuck out to you. There were a couple times that he was beat. Specifically, I went back and watched that Colts game, and there were some times where he wasn't super tight in coverage, where you're a little bit concerned because you know it's going to be tough. You know the type of corner that if he is. He's got a lot of size. He's a very willing hitter. He's the type of cornerback that we want, and I think the future is extremely bright here.
The only way they're going to get better is if they play.
And I can't count him out because I don't know what he's going to look like on the field against the Packers. He could look fantastic, and I hope that he does. But I can tell you, this is not the spot that you want to have to put him in this early into the season, where he's kind of forced into this role just because of Okudah going down to Quentin Dunbar cut. Now you're in the spot where he has to start. It's very similar to what happened with Jeff Okudah last season. Difference was Okudah was your, third pick in the draft. This is your third round pick in the draft. There wasn't really much to take away from that San Francisco game for AJ Parker, but he was very solid throughout the preseason. I think we're okay at the slot cornerback position. That's a spot where I do have some confidence. Now behind that, we do have the rookie Jerry Jacobs, who can play a little inside, play a little outside. He played a lot in that Colts game. He had 40 snaps in that final preseason game. We saw him in the debut against the San Francisco 49ers, specifically on special teams, and he made some tackles there. He stood out in special teams. We know he's a good tackler. He's a very physical cornerback. I mean, this player is the type of corners the Lions want. They want guys with size. They like to have guys that are physical. That's why they brought in Dunbar. It's, why they brought in Iffy. That's why they brought in Jerry Jacobs. Plays like that. He can play a little inside because he has done that in the past. He's mainly an outside cornerback, and he didn't look fantastic either in that Colts game. He gave up a lot of receptions, but he was also on the field a lot, but he did give up a lot of receptions. He almost had that interception in the end zone, which was tipped up, and he tried to toe tap, but he was out of bounds. Either way, I like him for depth. I have some confidence in Jerry Jacobs, but I doubt that he would take that role over for Iffy as the backup. And like I said, Bobby Price is a young, developing player that's still getting new to this position. This is completely new to him to play the cornerback spot from going to safety to cornerback in his second year. So it's a big transition. He has the size. He has the athleticism that they like. He has the special teams ability. We saw him play a lot there against the Niners, but we didn't see him on defense, of course. If you look at the cornerback depth, a lot of people have been pointing to Nickell Robey-Coleman as the player that the Lions could bring up to the roster with no Jeff Okudah. And yeah, that does make sense for depth purposes, but it doesn't help you at the outside cornerback position. Robey-Coleman doesn't give you outside versatility, and that's actually a big reason why we didn't keep either of them on the initial 53-man cuts for Elder or Robey-Coleman, because they didn't give you versatility on the outside or really much on special teams. They were simply slot cornerbacks, and it's nice to have a backup slot that's a vet. It's great to have that there, and he may very well be promoted to the active roster or signed to the roster this week. I think it's more likely that he's promoted for the Monday game from the two players of the practice squad to bring him up rather than signing him to the 53-man roster. I think it's more likely that that happens just to have that depth, because now if something happened to Parker, instead of being able to push Iffy inside, you could just put Nickell Robey-Coleman inside. That way you can keep Iffy on the outside to have that depth there. One thing that AJ gives you a little bit, AJ Parker can play some outside, just like Jerry Jacobs can play a little bit of inside as well. But then that kind of points you to, okay, what other options do we have outside of the players that are on this team right now? Where can we look? Free agency, trades. The Lions could definitely make a trade. It wouldn't shock me if they went out and made a trade just like they kind of did for Trinity Benson, because they didn't want to, risk him going through waivers, something like that. I don't think it would be a massive trade where it's some big name dude that they picked up and they gave up like a first or a second round pick. I doubt anything like that happens. We know that there's been rumors that Howard was kind of on the trade block. He had a good game from Miami, is what I'm hearing, against the New England Patriots. By the way, that was a heck of a game. I definitely wouldn't count it out with Brad Holmes to go make something like that happen, depending on how they feel about this cornerback position. But that really then points you to the free agent spot. And I would say the biggest name that came to mind as soon as this kind of went down, we're starting to think about, okay, well, what could the Lions go after? It was Quentin Dunbar. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday on Last Second Sports, when we were talking on Last Second Dose. We brought up Quentin Dunbar as, well, maybe the Lions go and they look back in that direction. Maybe they hit him up. Because remember, the Lions had Quentin Dunbar through the offseason program. He wasn't showing up to practice for personal reasons, which we're going to get into because he kind of told us what that was. And then the Lions decided to waive him. But the rumors are now starting to come out that the Detroit Lions have contacted Quentin Dunbar about a possible return. And apparently, this has been happening before this Jeff Okudah injury. So the Lions were showing interest on bringing him back before Okudah even went down with an injury. So the Lions have had this interest to bring him back. But of course, he's still available as a free agent. Other teams have had to do this as well. We just saw the San Francisco 49ers go out and sign Dre Kirkpatrick, who was one of the better options out there right now when you look at the free agent class. Usually when you're talking about this time, you look at the free agents, you get inconsistent players. You're going to guys on the older side. You're going to get a guy that's dealing with injuries. If you're getting a guy that's consistent and he's healthy, he's probably probably not a free agent. You know, you're usually going to have something going on there with the player. You know, something's going to be happening. But Dre Kirkpatrick was one of the better options, I think, that were available in free agency. And the word has been that San Francisco is working on getting a deal done with him. I don't know if that's been finalized or not. So it looks like he is off the table. But that means Quentin Dunbar is still on the table. Let me say, I would be 100% open to having Quentin Dunbar back. I didn't get to see him in training camp because the Lions waived him before. Well, actually, I take that back. I think we did. I don't even know if I saw him in training camp. No, he's a schematic fit for this team. Of course, if they reached out to him again and they initially brought him in, they like him up there. He's got the size, 6'2". He's a physical cornerback. And what's exciting about Dunbar is he has those injury, concerns. However, when he's on the field, he is one of those vets that also have upside. And you don't find that a ton. Look, the Lions, there's young cornerbacks out there in free agency that I could see the Lions jumping on that I would be interested in. You got your Mark Gilberts, who dealt with injuries back in college. He came out and it was like after his first year, man, this dude could be a first-round pick. Injuries completely derailed his entire college career. He gets picked up by the Pittsburgh Steelers, plays in a preseason. We played against him, and now he's been released. Guys like Shakir Brown, who are available, who's out of Michigan State, that we did some mock drafts with. Look, those guys are available, but the Lions, they have the young guys, right? I mean, if they want to go with a young guy, specifically a rookie, they have Jerry Jacobs that they liked enough to keep on the roster. Like Dan Campbell said, he's like, look, our guys here, we're fine with having Iffy step into a game because obviously we kept the guys that we liked. Yeah, they kept these young guys, but this time they're confident with what they have. So bringing the young guy doesn't seem super likely that they would bring in a rookie from another team because, you have those on your roster. And if you like those guys enough to make a roster spot for them, you'd probably just rather have them play in a game and see what that they can do. So at that point, it kind of takes you to that veteran side. And I'm looking through, there are tons of names. There's not a lot of notable names other than a Richard Sherman who's had, his issues. And I don't even know if something like that would be even likely. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers brought up that they could potentially bring him back. He's 33 years old. He's a good corner, but the off the field stuff, I doubt Richard Sherman's an option. So I'll just kind of leave it there. You have guys like Conley who have dealt with injuries, a former Ohio State cornerback, Marquise Denard as well. Looked into, first off, Kevin Peterson. He has that connection. He had his best season in 2017 with Aubrey Pleasant, but he was more of a slot guy. I don't really know how to pronounce the guy's name. Lidai Ray Wilson. Looked at him a little bit. He's kind of more of a slot cornerback. And there's a couple of other vet names that you may be familiar with. Got a guy like DJ Hayden. He was, with Jacksonville when Todd Wash was there, so there is a connection, but he's still more of a slot guy as well. And like I said, the Lions don't need a slot. Now, he can play at the outside. He doesn't have a ton of size, but he can play at the outside, but he's kind of more of a slot guy, so he's an option as well. One name that really stuck out to me here was Prince Amukamara, because I know I see here the name and I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, no, thank you. But when you kind of look at the background and you see where he's from and you see the connections and you see where he was at his best, you're like, okay, at least I'll write it down and consider it. I'll take a little look and peek into it because Prince Amukamara does have a background with Vic Fangio, and that's important because remember, the Lions cornerback that they added to the practice squad, Parnell Motley, came from Denver with Vic Fangio. It's that defensive scheme that the Lions have taken a lot from, Aaron Glenn, and Brad Holmes said, hey, you're a Vic Fangio guy. Secondary players that are from that kind of scheme that can fit in a lot quicker. So guys like that, and you see that Prince Amukamara, his best seasons really came with Vic Fangio when he was with the Chicago Bears. The last season that he was there was 2018. He had a fantastic year with the Bears in 2018. 57% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, only a 75.3 pass rating. But then he moved to 2019. His stats definitely took a step back. No longer with Vic Fangio. And then in 2020, he's kind of just on the practice squad. He wasn't in anybody's NFL roster during that time. Last team that he's been with, however, is the New Orleans Saints. And we know that that's where Aaron Glenn came from. With New Orleans, we saw in the preseason, he wasn't that great, so he ended up getting released. He is still an available option. Even a Devontae Bosby, a guy that was also with Denver, so he was with Vic Fangio. 10 games, 25 completions on 36 targets, a 105.4 pass rating. The statistics aren't great, but I was really trying to find connections here. But I do think that the best option, really personally, would be, if you're talking about free agents, would be bringing back Quentin Dunbar. We talked a lot about Quentin Dunbar this offseason, so I don't want to go super deep into this, but just a quick little reminder. Remember, Quentin Dunbar is the guy that in 2019 with the Washington, well, now football team, he was fantastic. He was PFF's #2 cornerback in the league that season. He was really good. His statistics rate 4 interceptions on only 11 games that he played that season. He still had his injuries that he had to deal with, allowing only a 61 passer rating, 60% completion percentage, only 2 touchdowns. I mean, the guy was outstanding in 2019 with Washington. When you watched him play on film, really good, made a big play against the Detroit Lions, really ended the game. against the Detroit Lions that season when we lost to, what was it, Dwayne Haskins. But then you fast forward to 2020, and that's where things got kind of messy. He only played in 6 games. The offseason with the mess, there was some like legal troubles that ended up getting dropped. The charges got dropped. He heads into the season, and the reports were that he was out of shape. I don't know if he was or not that he was out of shape, but the Seattle Seahawks traded for him. They brought him in to be kind of their top guy on the outside, and he still became their top guy on the outside to start the season. But he just did not look like the same guy. He was fighting through an injury for the 6 games that he played. He did not play that well. And ultimately, he was trying to play through it. Pete Carroll acknowledged he was playing through it. Ultimately, 6 games in, Pete Carroll's like, hey, man, you got to shut this thing down. He's like, he's got to shut it down. He's got to get right. He's just not right out there. He's not looking the same. The breaks weren't the same. The speed was the same. He didn't look like the same player. So like Jeff Okudah, same thing. They shut his season down. He goes and has surgery. And now you're heading back to this season. That's when he signed with the Detroit Lions. And it was kind of like a lot of signings we made. It's a 1-year deal. It's a prove-it deal. It's see what you can do. If you can stand out here, you have a chance to work up this young cornerback room. You have a chance to play a lot. And if you play well, you can get a big deal elsewhere next season with somebody. Someone can pay you next season. And I think that's where I would start is first off, the Lions took a chance. The Lions gave him an opportunity here, and he took that deal initially. The Lions gave him an opportunity, a guy that had a terrible 2020 season because of injuries, just a whole mess. The Lions gave him a chance, and he's in. He's working through training camp, and the word was that, you know, Imani and Okudah were kind of the top 2. It kind of became that way, but we looked at it as, okay, if he's not one of the top 2, he's our 3rd outside corner. Like, this was the vet that, again, had good depth for us, and if we needed him, we could have him step up, and he could play a role. But that's when training camp started happening, and we stopped seeing him at practice. And he actually quoted this kind of report that is out there that the Lions reached out to Dunbar. And as you guys can see, I won't read through the whole thing, but as you can see, it was for a personal reason is what we've heard. It looks like Quentin Dunbar kind of told us here what that personal issue was. We didn't know what it was. The Lions kind of stayed in contact with him. They ultimately released him because he, you know, wasn't there at practice. It was kind of hard to hold the roster spot. And as you can see, apparently, you know, a relative, you know, passed away for Quentin Dunbar, which is just awful to hear. He said he considered, you know, not playing this season. But then when you read towards the end, he says, I'm going to do this for you. And you love to hear that from Quentin Dunbar. You hate to hear that that's what he went through because you don't know as a fan. And that's why it's like, man, I hope everything is okay. Because we're not told this, but they stayed in contact with him. It wasn't like an ugly breakup where the Lions were like, oh, he wasn't playing well. They tried to stay in contact with him, but unfortunately, he was considering not even playing. But the report also stated that he had other options that he was considering, and he may still have those. But I think this is a good option for Quentin Dunbar if I was him. He's got an opportunity right now where you're probably have a good shot to slide in and compete for a top role with Iffy right away. Even if you don't start, you're going to get a lot of reps because you need to be deep at corner in this league. You just have to. He already understands his defense. The Lions took a shot at you. They were willing to reach out to you to try to bring you back, apparently, before Jeff Okudah even got hurt. So we wanted you here. So I think this is a great opportunity for Okudah. He's going to have a chance to play. And I actually think that Quentin Dunbar could be a really good player. He's one of my favorite, if not my favorite additions we made this offseason because the upside to me is through the roof with this guy. And the contract that we got him on to me is just a steal. I love that he was number 1. So it's unfortunate when he got released. I hated it, but we could possibly bring him back. He has other options, what the word is. Injuries are happening, so other teams are making moves. One team, notably the Niners, who went out and brought in Kirkpatrick, which means that he's still available. So, personally, I think the Lions' best option for agency would be getting Dunbar back. If they can't do it, some of those guys that I named, you could also throw a guy like maybe Daryl Worley into that mix. I do think there's young guys, but the Lions have the young guys. Odds are, Monday Night Football, if he's going to be the number 2 cornerback across from Imani. Unless they bring in a guy like this that already was in this defense and can pick it up fast enough where he can get a big role. Because I'm guessing the Lions want to get this done as fast as they possibly can with somebody. Because if you're doing it with someone that you didn't already have this offseason, you need more time. And I love that, you know, he said that he's going to play, you know, for him. So, I mean, you hate to hear it with him. Obviously, it's terrible news, and that's why that happened. But this is a really good opportunity, and I think he would have a great opportunity here. So I would look to Dunbar to bring him back, and I think that'd be fantastic for the Lions. Though it seems very possible that there's a reunion coming. The Lions have also released offensive lineman Tommy Kramer. He'll probably get put back on the practice squad. We didn't see him last week. We went through the 6 offensive line set. We put Logan Stenberg out there. He's a guy that Campbell really likes. So he was signed to the active roster. We had our offensive line issues just for depth purposes. Now he has been released. He'll probably end up back on the practice squad. But this opens up another roster spot. Okudah on IR, and this releasing means 2 roster spots are open. The Lions can do whatever they want. It's very possible they bring up Nickell Roby-Coleman, and they also potentially go at a free agent. Because they open up 2 spots, it's pretty much a guarantee, a lock that Lions are bringing someone in. Some other roster news, the Detroit Lions also lost kicker Zane Gonzalez. to the Carolina Panthers. He was signed off our practice squad. So the Lions are now back down to one kicker. That is Austin Cyber. We saw him go 1 for 2 on the day. He was very close on that first kick. The second one he knocked through. You definitely saw the pop in his leg, but you'd like to see him go 2 for 2. The good thing is he did give us an onside back, which is obviously not easy to do. But that does mean that there's an open spot on the practice squad, which is very likely where Tommy Kramer could just fit right back in. Remember that this is kind of filled back up because Will Holden was added to the practice squad. Now, Lions could make some space and try to add another kicker back. Maybe a Randy Bullock. Everything I've heard, I think he's still available. He may be on someone else's practice squad, but I think he's still available. But Zane Gonzalez is gone. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but the Lions did name the 4 players that they will protect for this week. Man, I like this hat. The Lions hook your boy up with this hat, man. This thing is clean. I'm sorry. I don't want to like bend it because I don't want to ruin it. So I'm just rocking it like this. It's swaggy too. Do I look swaggy? We got some Lions updates here. I won't spend a lot of time here, but the Lions did name the 4 players that they are protecting on their practice squad for this week. These are the players that you cannot have signed off your practice squad. This begins on Tuesday. And, of course, we lost Zane Gonzalez to the Carolina Panthers. So we currently only have 15 players on our practice squad, but that'll probably get back to 16 pretty darn soon. And they could definitely be with Tommy Kramer. But the 4 players protected for this week include 3 of the 4 same guys from last week. The new addition, Will Holden, the offensive tackle. So, yes, Will Holden has now been protected, and the Lions probably like what they saw in terms of practice, and they're like, okay, this is good depth. We'll keep him around. Now, none of the players that the Lions protected last week were promoted to the active roster. All right, so just keep that in mind. But Will Holden is depth at that tackle position now that Taylor Decker is out and he is placed on IR. Right now, he's really your only true backup tackle behind Penei Sewell and behind Matt Nelson. So Will Holden makes sense. They don't want to lose him. Clearly, they like him enough in practice to protect him for this week. So that gives you some depth at that backup tackle position. And luckily, we didn't have to see him last week, which is a good thing. The other 3 are the exact same from last week. Jaylen Elliot, the safety. He can play both safety spots. He gives you a lot of special teams ability. Plus, he played well in the preseason. Absolutely love that the Lions are making this. We did see a 1 snap defensively from CJ Moore in this past game. I don't remember what he did in that play, but I remember he was on the field. So we saw 1 snap there just to throw it out there. But he has been protected once again, Jaylen Elliot. CJ Moore is kind of their 4th safety behind Dean Marlowe, who had a few snaps, but they want to keep around Elliott. I love that decision because he played well enough in the preseason to keep him around. Steven Montez. And with Tim Boyle still on IR, as long as he's on IR, we're probably going to see Steven Montez here as your 3rd quarterback. They clearly like him enough to protect him once again for 2nd straight week, and this is the 3rd Lions quarterback as of right now. I don't believe he was promoted to the active... No, he wasn't promoted to the active roster. So the Lions did roll with 2 last week, but Montez continues to be the 3rd in practice for competition. And finally, Bruce Hector, the defensive lineman. Hector is a pretty darn good player, right? He's a pretty good player. And with Levi, he was inactive last week. We had a healthy scratch, which was Juliana Okwara, who was inactive last week. Of course, you can't have all 53 players active. So the defensive line is one of the spots where we've had some names come up. Rockers went down, and then he came back in this past game. So it's just a good spot to hold depth. And with how well Hector played, to protect him just makes a lot of sense. So that's a little update. And this thing is hurting my ears, man. I got this thing on way too tight. What am I? Get this thing off me. And with these rumors, it sounds like it's going to be Dunbar. I am pumped. Please bring in Dunbar. I would love to have Quentin Dunbar back in a Lions uniform. I think this would be a fantastic reunion with him. I think this is going to be good. I think it's good. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I love it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We'll keep an eye on it if it happens or if they make any move because we're assuming something's going to happen. I'll let you guys know. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.